Happy Friday, everybody. We're going live from New York City. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Before I introduce my guest today, I'm going to give you the message of the week. Today, we're talking radio on Talk Radio. So I'm taking it back, old school, for all you youngsters out there that are like, what's radio? Yeah, I think you'll dig this one. This is from my good friend, Casey Kasem.
Oh, God.
Oh, God.
even old for me.
No, but who, yeah. He was great, though. That was like radio for me. Growing up, it's like, Casey Kasem's top 40. I love that voice, too, if anybody ever had.
Like Wolfman Jack.
Man, I mean, how much heat
awesome.
did that kid get through, like, school and everything? And people were like, don't talk, man. Like, your voice, I can't. And then, like, boom, pay dirt. So, Casey Kasem.
I'm not using this.
I'm not going to do it in his voice because it'll hurt. I'm just getting over a cold. But this is a cute one. It's not what you expect from him. But said, I don't know how old this is either, but I think it applies. Anytime in radio that you can reach somebody on an emotional level, you're really connecting.
Yes, true.
I think you would agree with that based off of what you've done, what you've put together.
Yeah.
And similar to what I'm doing.
Some people talk about the Oprah moment kind of thing as far as connecting. People are like, I don't know what to do for an interview because we have this after-school program and where they learn journalism skills and interview skills. And one thing I'm just like, look, if you don't know, ask them what it is that they do. I mean, like, how did they get to where... Describe your journey, you know, and a lot of times they're like, "Ooh, me? I never expected you to ask me that." You know, it's all right. You can ask me, but it's all part of it. But it's just the basic thing to just say, "All right, why that?"
Shit, that was all I had for today.
Oh, all right, done. Didn't real.
Okay, everybody, have a great. Oh, Patty's watching. Say hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So okay, let me introduce you before you just take my show
Ramble.
now.
Sorry,
I knew this was going to happen. Kristen Wallace, welcome. How are you?
I'm okay. It's so nice to see you. I miss you guys.
It's
so
crazy. We talk about you guys all the time, and it's funny because I'm like Jack and Marlo's mom, and JC's like,
who? Yeah.
It's been that long.
I know. And we have no excuse other than the fact that we're parents and busy.
No,
and
same here.
Like,
I mean, we used to come out here.
We live like 3 miles away from each other.
And we used to come out, and it's just like crazy now. You know, we had another kid, right?
I know.
Yeah. So we haven't. She's not
absolutely
quite 2.
beautiful.
That's Patty's fault. And
so
my buddy
awesome.
Rob Weiner Kate. What's up, Rob? How you doing?
Hi, Rob.
Oh, Patty said, hi, I just waved at you because I'm a tech-tard like that.
Okay.
I don't think that's appropriate, Patty.
A tech-tard?
That word.
I'm stealing that.
She's a teacher.
I've never heard that. It's so... Can I steal that?
What would the DOE say? What were you going to say?
I don't know. I don't know kids these days.
So, you're a Jersey girl, yeah?
Oh, really? This is what you talk about first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bridge and Tunnel.
I'm from Jersey. I'm proudly from Trenton, as we say there. And I grew up there-ish, but I lived in Germany in the American military for 5 years in there. I lived in San Francisco, but... Yeah, I'm from Jersey. I can say that now.
And of Scottish descent, if memory serves, yes?
Yes, I'm a Wallace.
Yeah. Fighter.
Yes,
Fighter.
We are.
Yeah.
Crazy
crazy bunch
people.
Of Scots.
A bunch of Robin Hood
But you make
types.
the best whiskey in the world.
Yes, we do.
I don't care what Tom says.
I don't know. It's got to be the rain and the
something
rocks.
And the high altitude. That's fantastic.
The skirts.
Do you and Tom, right? That's.
I don't know.
It's the genitalia.
Yes, it must be.
She said, I'm jealous, Jeremiah. Get some Kristen time. Aw, please set up a play date for us.
You got it.
Got to go to Staten Island.
Yes.
So,
the island,
do you and Tom argue over who makes the better whiskey? Because I know at all the parties, it's always Irish.
No, I don't actually drink liquor, but I drink lots of beer and wine. But he's like that person. Like the last time I think I had a liquor drink was like at the gate in Brooklyn where I met Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I drank all of my liquor in my 20s, and then I was, my lifetime liquor amount, I drank that up in my 20s.
Was that when you were managing bands?
No. It was condensed in a period of years. No, it's just not my thing. I honestly...
But you did manage rock bands, right?
I was a tour manager for bands for many years.
For a little bit?
Sure, we could start there. Let's see. I I used to book the Pyramid Club. I used to book the Pyramid Club on the Lower East Side, which is still there, I think. But I don't think it's operational, but it goes in and out of so many people's hands all the time. But I did book that club before I was old enough to be in the club. And I would book bands and tons of stuff. I had like Flipper and Helmet and all these like really cool bands from back in the day.
Oh
Helmet,
my God.
yeah,
I remember Helmet. That's great.
Awesome. So I had been booking this club, and I had also, because I started working as like a door girl at like a club that was around the corner on 5th and 5th. And I ended up doing like after show parties there, and that moved over to the Pyramid Club. And then I walked into the Pyramid Club one day, and the ownership had changed hands, and this guy was like, "No more rock shows. We're putting in a pool table." And I was like, "Oh shit! What the fuck? What am I gonna do?" So I walked over dejected to CBGB's, and my friends in the Lunatics were there. And I was like, I explained what happened, and they're like, "Well, we're going on tour tomorrow. We need a tour manager. Want to come?" And I was like, "I don't have anything else to do, apparently. So yeah, sure, I'll come." And I went and toured and stayed out for about 8 years, living on couches and whatnot. Yeah. And I went from Lunatics to Sick of It All, and from Sick of It All to Rancid. Wow. And then Luscious Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
And then
what's her name? Lives in Windsor Terrace.
She does.
I hang out with her.
Gabby.
I see her from time to time. Meredith.
Yeah, oh, yeah. She's awesome. Yeah. She would make us do yoga for an hour before going on the stage. Yeah. Everyone's like, she's like, "Come on, everybody, let's do yoga." And it was actually awesome. Great. It was really good. But and then who else did I? Lots of other bands. Lots and lots of other bands, smaller bands. Those are
some good lineups there that you just described.
Yeah. But then I left the road after a number of years and went to go work for a booking agency. Mm-hmm. And then I did some tour management still there of Medeski, Martin and Wood, and I think a Swans tour in there as well. And so
what pulled you into that? Like, was it just you were just a kid and just loved it, and the scene and the environment and just booking shows? And like, I got into the same thing. I was booking at like 17. I was putting shows together, calling clubs, but I was the drummer in a band. It was like a working band, but everybody else was an adult. They had day jobs. So during the day, they couldn't make the calls. So I was like doing all the hustling, collecting the money, negotiating contracts, but it was because nobody else could do it, and I was actually in the band.
Yeah, I did something similar. Like I would always sort of, I didn't have an apartment while I was touring, so I would stay on people's couches. And then part of my sort of do was like, all right, I'll make some phone calls for your band and try to get some shows. And then back in that day, it was like you had a piece of paper and people's phone numbers, and you would just call them. Same with tour managing as well.
Like from a payphone, right?
Tour managing in that time before cell phones was insane. Like I would be at a truck stop, and I would have like a roll of quarters that I would just keep putting in the machine to try to get someone to get me directions to their club. Yeah. And the thing about people who answer phones at clubs in the middle of fucking nowhere, they'd be like, "You just go down a ways, and then you like make a left. I don't know the name of the street, but it's like a ways." And you're just like, you have 30 seconds left in your call. And you're just like, all right, I hope I figure it out.
Hope we see you.
And, driving around in circles in a tour bus, like, "Excuse me, sir. Do you know how to get to whatever?" I mean, it was crazy to try to figure it out. Like booking hotels, I would go to what's it called? Do they have them now? Travel agents?
It's funny.
Agencies.
I know
You're like,
a young person that's a
do?
travel agent, and I'm like, people still use those? And she's like, it's remarkably cheap, and they make a lot of money because it's like, it's a deal now to go through a travel agent, where before it was like, they were sucking all your money out. But now they get like really crazy deals. Yeah. There's probably only like 5 of them, but.
Yeah. And people do it for corporate stuff that do their planning and stuff. Yeah. But they would have, every year they would get this big catalog of hotels. And so they would give me their old books. So, which had phone numbers.
You just like roll around with the old books.
An old book, and I'd be like, all right, Motel 6 outside, north of was it
on
Seattle?
Route 2.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, hello, I'd like to make a reservation. So, yeah, that was old school tour managing. And then it started to get easier.
And would you guys
obviously.
just pile into a couple rooms? It wasn't like everybody got their own room, right?
It depends on the band.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, some bands are more difficult than others. Like I've tour managed David Byrne and his string section.
Yeah.
And his string section.
They got their own room.
Well, their instruments got their own seats. Wow. Because they were irreplaceable and, temperature and humidity affects it.
I have friends like that.
We toured in, we toured in Australia, and it was like so humid, and they're just like, my violin is going to just get. And then I've also tour managed high-end DJs, which is like Tiesto and stuff like that. Carl Cox stuff which is one guy and a USB stick, and they're more difficult than a van full of
drunk ass
vegan
rockers. Oh yeah,
a van full of vegan punk rockers.
Yeah.
Not kidding. I mean, with tour managing in the South with vegetarians and vegans, it's like you really have to pull over and graze.
Because they literally put bacon in everything, even if they're like, it's vegetarian.
Yes.
And it's like, no, there's bacon in here. I know there is.
I'm like, all right. Oh, we can go to, what is it called? I don't know, I'm just basing on it. But like, I can get side dishes at, Cracker Barrel.
Oh my God.
And at Cracker Barrel, you're like, there's literally meat in like, we can have some apples. That's pretty much what we ate. We end up going to, with Luscious Jackson even, we went to the store and we, cleaned out the sink in the bathroom of the hotel and made it a salad bowl so that we could make a salad. With Medeski, Martin and Wood, we like their rider was more up there so that they could have something like they would make them get all this great groceries and local organic stuff. So we would cook in the bus a lot, and it was always like a rice cooker there. Yeah. So you would have rice and bananas for breakfast, and then rice and whatnot.
Just rice.
Just rice all
like
day.
Africans.
Rice and
much of West Africa is
sandwiches.
Rice with everything.
But it was, you make do with what you got.
No, but that was
depends on where you
that's
are.
why I hated touring, because it was like one too many Cracker Barrels. And I would just, I've always loved good food and beverage. And it's like, you eat terrible on the road. It's just awful.
Yeah. And then, that's the one thing about tour managing is like, people don't really realize. Like, I did logistics for a lot of DJs and on the booking side. Because when I worked for a booking agency that booked all DJs, you also handle their tour logistics almost like a manager and a tour manager does. So some people who have insane schedules like that need to have things specifically laid out for them for sort of mental health markers. So I need to be in this type of plane on this particular seat, like down to I need this brand of cranberry juice. Not kidding. Every single time because everything is insane around me all the time, and these are the things I need to keep me solid. And so if you're traveling with a band, you have to recognize the needs of everybody that you're with and try to be the sort of rock in that chaos. And because your food is changing, your water is changing, your sleep is changing, you're not around your crew.
Yeah.
And I would call it tour disease. It would be like the biggest dude with the biggest tattoos would start literally laughing at his oatmeal in the morning, losing his mind because it would be that person who had sort of supported themselves with this idea of what was security, and it wasn't. Like, their rug got pulled out completely from underneath them, and somebody wasn't bringing them, their whatever to eat that was the same. So it's a challenge.
It strips you down.
It really does. Yeah. And then people that make it through 6 weeks, I'm sorry, you got to stop. I make it through like 6 weeks is like, they hug you at the end. They're like, we made it. Like, we've been through this thing together. And you're like, all right.
I was listening to a great show earlier this morning. We'll talk about it when we get back. A friend of mine, he was saying the same thing. It was so funny. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a few. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
And we're back once again. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with my guest, Kristen Wallace. You want to give a shout out? You want to say what's up?
Hi, Annette. If you're listening. Hi, Tom.
What's
if
up,
you're listening.
Tom? If you're still there. Good to see you. Hope to see you soon, for real.
Yeah, for real.
Not the Casey Kasem version.
Yes, let's go visit them.
So,
Plus, your restaurant's awesome. I was there not too long ago.
Man, and I can't believe I wasn't there.
Yeah, but it was dang good.
Make sure you tell them the address. No, I'm kidding. Checks in the mail. So I just on the break, we had a laugh. I had asked Kristen what prepared her. How many DJs did you say you have now?
We have 115 DJs.
115. Well, I guess we should tell them what you do.
Oh, they're just hanging around my house.
Yeah, exactly. It's
a home for DJs.
That's, it's a New York thing, guys. It's a Staten Island thing. So you started...
Yes, I'm from Staten Island, by the way.
You started Maker Park Radio.
Yes.
Almost
Staten 3 years ago.
Almost 3 years ago. And it was Staten Island's first internet radio broadcast,
it is
correct?
Its own... It's the only one in Staten Island.
So what, everybody's still just like satellite and like...
It's 1990 there.
Yeah,
you go back in time and you're like...
I didn't want to say it.
Whoa, everyone's wearing acid wash jeans.
But that's kind of the beauty of it, too. Like, that's part of what I love about going to Staten Island is that it's so nostalgic and just laid back compared to, like, everything else. It's so crazy. Like, I love Brooklyn, but sometimes I'm just like...
The hustle of it, yeah.
Not even the hustle, just like the silliness sometimes. I'm like, okay.
I know. I lived there. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. But still, I know what you mean.
And like Windsor
that's
Terrace
the part of it
still,
I miss sometimes.
Right. Oh, the silliness.
Like, no, just...
the entertainment.
I don't know, like the just more people that are, I don't know, involved in...
Yeah.
Other interesting things.
Right.
I don't know. That's a terrible way to put it.
No,
but
not 1950s mentality.
Well, there's a whole art scene on the North Shore of Staten Island. There's like a strip on the North Shore called the Arts District.
And that was kind of like part of the whole thing, right? Because there's festivals that I've seen you guys post about. And it's like, it's not just your radio show. There's like a whole thing happening there.
Yeah, it's still slightly a small town, but it is the fastest growing borough. It's like one of the only waterfronts that really are not developed, that are like being gentrified with these big condos and stuff now, but at a much slower rate than people sort of predicted.
Yeah.
When I moved there, I felt quite isolated because a lot of people very much stick to their church, people, sports people have lived there and grew up there the whole life. Don't see stuff. And
Tom's from...
He's from there, and he didn't think that we'd end up back there, but we are, because we needed the
too
space.
Many goddamn kids.
Yes, that's the problem.
I know a little something about that.
Seriously, no, that was why, because we started looking further and further south in Brooklyn. And we're like, I can't afford that doghouse either. So I can let's move across the street. Let's jump across the pond. We get a backyard. We get space, And he was like, I can't believe I'm back here, but. I'm glad we did. I was super isolated when I first got there. I was like, I had a baby. I didn't know anybody. I was like, where the hell am I? And I decided to learn Ableton and take like 6 years to learn Ableton. And I had a music studio so I could be loud, but I was still very isolated. You know, Tom would come home from work and be like, oh, I drove this ship and I talked to this person and I did, you know, this, I drove a cruise ship today and I did something amazing. And he's like, what did you do? And I was like, I worked on a kick drum sound for like 5 hours and that was it, you know? And so I felt like I really needed to do something. And so Tom gave me this suggestion like, oh, this art festival is looking for volunteers. So I went and I volunteered, and at my age, they call it volunteering, not interning, I guess. So I interned for
I had this same conversation last night, literally. I was about the Windsor Terrace Food Co-op, and I was like, you're never too old to intern, are you? Because that's basically what I'm doing at this point. Yeah,
you are. You kind of are.
Volunteering.
So I ended up meeting these people through this art festival where I took care of like the production of the music end of it, but like 4,000 people poured in the door looking for something to do. And I was like, oh, if you build it, they will come. They are here. They're here. They are totally here. There are people looking for engaging something.
So it goes back to the question on the break. What prepared you more for this? Being a parent?
I totally skipped that.
Being a parent? Well, I didn't get answer it.
Both.
I ask it.
I really think both.
Did having kids prepare you more, or managing bands prepare you for parenting, or because like both are like CEO qualifications. Like if you have 4 kids, like you could.
But I get worse and worse at it the more children I have. I don't know what I'm doing.
Is it, or are you getting better? I don't know.
Or less.
I'm always on the fence.
Uptight.
I'm always on the fence. Although, you know, I thought I was getting better, but then 9 knocked herself out accidentally. And I was like, oh, that never happened before. Maybe I need to pay attention more.
Well, my oldest, Ruby, is now like going to be 23, which is parenting an adult is a whole
remember
thing.
when you posted something about her going to college, I was like, wait, well, who?
Yeah, she's out of college right now. She works for Seth Meyers. And that's insane. Yeah, it's pretty awesome in L.A.
Wow.
It is cool. Parenting an adult is like you have to make suggestions that it was their idea to do something all along, and then like they're doing the thing you want them to do. It works great. But yeah, it's like,
just like being a boss.
Parenting definitely did, in that it makes you want to get the crap out of your life or negativity out of your life. And people like that just are sort of like your time suck kind of stuff and people, like, because you only have a limited amount of time to do stuff. I know I don't like want to totally bring it to politics, but when some election happened, I felt I lived on a conservative borough. Some election. So I lived in a conservative borough, right? And so there was all this tension that was happening between right and left. And I was like, a lot of people wanted to move that were on the left and I was like, well, I have to live here. I have to do something about it. And I want to create a better place for my children to live. So it absolutely inspired me to do that. So the reason I started a radio station was to try to bring people together away from so much polarization.
Right. Yeah.
And so that was a very strong motivator. But I also, I come from a place that from day one, even with the rock and roll, punk rock stuff, I was always a fighter for the underdog.
Because you're a Wallace.
Because I'm a Wallace. It's so true. The wretch.
I was like plotting when I was going to say that. Thank you.
You're just like, oh dear.
Love it.
I walked right into that.
You did. I was like, wow, that was easier than I thought it was going to be.
But I have been. So I've been an advocate for artists, whether it be, to be a person that's taking care of artists as a tour manager, fighting on, their contracts, like, no, they deserve this, or as an agent or whatever.
It says Ocean Spray cranberry juice.
Yes, artist advocacy.
Not Kirkland.
I need the hotel room overlooking the fountains at the Bellagio, not Hollywood Boulevard. Not a thing that did not happen. My favorite tour managing thing was this one DJ was like, I can't fly in that direction because my feng shui advisor told me it's bad luck to fly in that direction.
So we got to go the long way around.
$50,000 to play for 30 minutes. So I ended up calling the feng shui advisor and having a conversation. So he said it was okay. So we rented this DJ an RV to drive an insane amount of miles through the desert. Never had that problem again. Yeah, but we got there. Anyway, I digress. So I guess what motivated me to do it was that, and my wanting to advocate for the arts as well, but on a more public level than just sort of through business.
And you're also a communicator. I remember your blog. What was it? Bad
yeah.
Moto
Mama.
Moto Mama. That's what it was.
That was a long time ago.
I remember that. It was the best. So Kristen and I were neighbors. We lived. We could almost reach through to our house. Like we were so close that your iTunes would pop up on ours. Like I would just turn on my computer and I'd be like, oh, there's Kristen and Tom's iTunes. And it was like rockabilly all day. But like the walls were so thin. Yeah. It was just like, oh yeah.
That was crazy.
We were poor.
We paid way too much for that apartment.
And well, you know, it's funny. So now I've got a great relationship with Saber. He was actually on the show, I don't know, in like November or December. I ended up taking the basement space.
What?
And friends of mine and I turned it into a music studio. But I remember when he first offered it to us, and we like between the four of us, we were like, we can't afford it. It was like we were just like scraping by, and now I have that, and we actually ended up moving in the top floor of that building. So he's now my landlord. But
That's
we're really good friends, and he's a great dude.
I remember that these guys moved in there that were practicing drums.
Yeah.
But we had infant twins at the time. And I remember Tom went down there with like giant circles under his eyes.
Yeah.
And he's like, you need to shut up.
Well, I don't know if they were there when... And so friends of mine ended up moving into your old place. People that I know now. They bought a house in the neighborhood, but the build-out was taking too long. So they ended up just renting that for like a year. But there was a producer that ended up moving on to the ground floor. And they had a kid. So it wasn't them. But then it's either his sister or his brother moved into the basement, and they were marimba artists.
Wow.
So, and like all these kids in the neighborhood were taking lessons, but it was like classical music. It definitely wasn't like drums, wasn't like rock and roll.
Yeah.
So it was like this crazy place where, you know, kids were learning classical marimba, and I thought that was fantastic. The producer, he ended up, they had a kid. I think they actually had one, and then they had their second one, and they moved out.
That's a cool neighbor to have.
Yeah.
If you're into the marimba.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We have a drum set in the middle of my living room right now, but it does, you know, I wouldn't have done that if I had infant twins living like above me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I don't know. It's all a blur too, because, you know, you're so sleep deprived at that point.
Oh, Patty talks about it all the time.
Yeah, you're like, but yeah, we'd survived.
But, you know, being in your 20s too, you're just clueless. So you're like, I think I'm going to put a drum set right here and just play. Like, sounds great. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
Yeah,
Stupid shit
I know
that.
I did. But so we ended up building out the basement. Like I had to soundproof it not too long ago. So now I have like a room inside of a room in that basement.
That's way cool.
I was going to talk about my buddies, the podcast I listened to this morning, a band called The Spotlights. Have you heard of them?
Mm-mm.
Marty Quintero and The Spotlights. We're going to take another break. We can talk about that in a minute. But they were in the studio for a while. It was a bunch of like crazy people in there. It was nuts. Now it's down to just me, which is kind of nice.
Where did you practice before? Because you were...
I've had that place for about 7 years now. Prior to that, a guy, it's funny, this guy used to work for Nickelodeon and like just over here in the Viacom building as a composer, and he ended up writing the theme for Dora the Explorer. And he was like, "Oh, thanks, I'm out of here." And he took over an industrial space in Bushwick, and he was so cool about it. He just he didn't charge us. Like everybody had like a duty. Like my duty was to, if anything ever happened to the doors, because he actually had a floating room. So if something happened to the doors, it was double doors. Like that was my responsibility. But if I did that, my band could play there. You know, we could rehearse there. And he recorded a bunch of guys just for free. I mean, he produced albums and stuff. He was really great. He ended up moving to Connecticut, and we lost the space. But that was the I know, right? That was the first place I had. It was great because the only problem was a hike, and this was before the G even went past Smith and Ninth. So I'd have to take the F to the G, then the G to the L, the L out in, and this was out at the Jefferson station before there was nothing. I mean, you go out there now and it's like, oh, there's bars and organic markets and pizza places. There was one funky bodega. You could buy a 22 at Corona, and you were going to get robbed no matter what. Like you ran to the train station. It was like 2 avenues from the building to the station.
$7 Corona, please.
Man, no. I mean, it was like $2 for a 22, but it was just such an insane scene at that time. And now it's crazy. I played there
totally
recently,
different
and I was
world.
like, where am I? Get me out of here. I don't like this. I'd much rather get robbed than be subject to this ballyhoo. That's what I'm saying. Like the Brooklyn ballyhoo. It's like, oh, guys, really? This is what you decided to do? Like, there were so many options.
I know.
All right, we're going to take another break. We'll be back in a few. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio, big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Welcome back, everybody. Once again, you're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Happy Friday. We're here with Kristen Wallace, who started Maker Park Radio, Staten Island's first and still only internet radio broadcast, because it is still 1952 there. You guys do doo-wop?
We actually do have a show that does doo-wop.
So many interesting
Jackie
shows.
Hollywood
doo-wop
show. It's awesome. He plays really old, scratchy records, and he can't hear very well, but he's like really enthusiastic about the good old days.
That's great.
And he's got his like
Is it appropriate?
Pro-Trump things he does and says, and we don't care. It's okay
because Staten Island.
It's Switzerland where our radio station is, so we're okay.
Nice.
But it's cool. It's it's so rewarding, and I don't want to complain about it too much, but it's a nonprofit, so there's a lot of grant writing involved and a lot of like.
So how'd you get it off the ground? Like that, this is the part I'm curious about, because this is something I thought about as a kid listening to Casey Kasem. How does he do it? And then I didn't think about it at all because radio kind of died, you know? And then last summer when Sam's like, hey, I was on a show and he's like, hey, do you want to host a show? And I was like, how does all this work? What happens? Like, I just talk in the microphone and it.
When I was a kid in Trenton, my sister went to Trenton State College, which is now Trenton University, and they had a radio station there. They still do, WTSR. And I stole my sister's college ID, and I got an FCC license, and I went and applied to become a radio station
And that's how you do it, kids.
And so, strangely enough, it was the coolest radio station because it was before there was program directors and anything. You had the whole place to yourself. Yeah. Like, we would go to 7-Eleven. We'd put a record on, go to 7-Eleven, get some Slurpees, and come back. Like, it was like no structure.
Yeah.
But it was the beginning for me, for my love of radio. And then I felt like, okay, I need to do something. What do I want to do? And I read a review. I read a article on the Lot Radio, which is in Brooklyn, that is outside in a shipping container. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. But they're like a coffee shop that's also a radio station, and they do really cool stuff.
It's like Roberta's does the same thing. It's
yeah.
like a restaurant.
They're friends of mine and stuff. They're awesome, some of them. And I mean, some of them are friends of mine, not some of them are awesome. But basically, so I was like, we have to do this here. We have to do this, because I felt like I wanted to do something to sort of connect the arts community, because it was all little pockets. There's really, it's venue poor over there. Everybody plays in like tiny little bars and stuff. There's not a real venue for anybody else to play other than Mother Pug Saloon, which is like a punk rock bar, which is awesome, but it's still very small. Yeah. So I'm like, what do I know? I know radio. Let's just start radio. So I was DJing this wedding upstate New York, and the Scott and DB, who own Makerspace. Do you know what a Makerspace is?
No, I mean, I've read about it a little bit, but I'm not very clear. Why don't you tell
so
everybody
it's like a STEM-related small business incubator. Mm-hmm. So they have tools, like giant routers and giant, like enormous tools that you, $50,000, $100,000 tools that you could never afford to own yourself. Yeah. So if you're someone with an idea to make something, you can become a member of a makerspace and pay like a member fee, but then you take classes and you learn how to use these tools to be able to make your idea. So there's also areas where people rent studios to work on their particular like thing. So there's a guy that fixes typewriters that's there. There's a person that does metal welding that's there. There's a photographer. Painters have studios. This woman was there who had to make 100 headdresses for her Indian tribe before the chief would bless her. So she was in there making that. There's a guy that was making drones for a while that's there. So there's like a wood shop and a metal shop. They also run Makerspace in Brooklyn. Both can be found on makerspace.nyc.
Where's the one in
That's
Brooklyn?
In the Army, whatever that is. Like in Sunset Park, along the water, those gigantic buildings.
Industry
Army
City.
Terminal. No, south of there.
Okay.
The bigger, long ones on the water. Gotcha. So they're there. And they are a huge, gigantic facility that you can take classes in woodworking and wood shop and welding, and they have it's called Women Welding and Wine. The wine comes after you weld.
I was going to say, that sounds dangerous.
Yeah, that's awesome. But
somebody's losing a finger.
Yeah. So it's really cool, active space. Very, brings in all kinds of different people. Yeah. So at the Staten Island location, there was a lot of land across the street. This big triangle-shaped lot of land, and it was always dumped on. There was like 15 burnout cars. There was people living there. It was really fucked up. People would just dump stuff all the time. And so Makerspace would clear it, and it would get dumped on again. And they finally took a lease out with the city, and they got some sidewalks, and they got shipping containers that were plopped in there. And it's now a sculpture park. And we do tons of events there and stuff.
Awesome.
So at
I
this
saw
wedding,
pictures from something.
Yeah, we do like a block party there.
Yeah.
And so like a little mini music festival we do there. And so I was at this wedding, and they said, "Oh, do you want to work, your music studio at the Makerspace?" And I was like, "Well, I make techno music, and you guys make a lot of noise, and I'm not so sure. I'm loud, you're loud. I'm not so sure those things would go well together." But I do have an idea for your shipping container. And so I fought with the city for a while, like 6 months maybe.
Because you're a Wallace.
And because thank you. Because it's 1990 there. They're like, we can't do that. That's, I can't do that. You need a bathroom and an egress and you can't possibly do that. And I was like, here are 10 places it's done. It's done in East New York at this a series of art galleries. Smorgasburg does it down in Coney Island. On the high rise, there's other restaurants that are in shipping containers. At the time, I don't think anymore, there was at South Street Seaport, while they were like repairing from Hurricane Sandy, there was tons of shipping containers. I mean, they're used all over the world. They have electric to shipping containers. But in Staten Island, beyond the scope of imagination, how you could possibly do that. And one day we were sitting outside a makerspace, and I'm like, can we do it in your closet that you have right there? And they said, okay. And that was the cool thing about Scott and DB that own makerspaces, and that they're like, if you have a crazy idea, they're like, all right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So we built it out. Tom built it out.
Yeah.
And we hosted a meeting that said, does anybody want to be a DJ? And like 40 people came. And most of them became DJs, except for like one guy who moved away. And it just built and it built. And a lot of times people who are guests end up becoming DJs. That's for sure.
Do some do it remotely, or everybody coming to the studio?
No, at the moment, we're having Q from Impractical Jokers is going to start doing a show every other week. And so that's going to be remotely sometimes.
Right.
Because his schedule is crazy.
Yeah.
We have Vince Clark from Erasure. That was my shoe. Vince Clark from Erasure does a show called The Synthesizer Show with Reed Hayes.
I've seen that.
And Reed Hayes is in Reed and Caroline, the band. I don't know if you know Caroline. She's from the neighborhood.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh, I might. Yeah, maybe.
But
sounds familiar.
Yeah, she had twins. So anyway, she's so their show is The Synthesizer Show, and so they didn't want to miss an episode, and so when Vince went on the Erasure tour, he did his show from backstage on the Erasure tour,
nice.
which was really cool.
That's dope.
And we stream live events. We partner with Summer Stage, and we stream the Summer Stage here. They're like, do you want to do all the Summer Stages? And I was like, no, I don't, but thank you. I'd love to, but I don't have the capacity to do that. So we do live streaming of stuff. And people ask us to stream stuff live a lot. And sometimes I'm like, no, because that's boring. That's going to be boring. Your event is going to be boring if it's streamed live. They're like, we're the Philharmonic or whatever. Do you want to?
Right.
And I'm like, if people wanted to go see it, they would go see it. No one wants to sit on their, and watch it on TV. I'm like, but if you want to bring in your oboe player, and we can talk about why did you choose this ridiculous instrument? Like, how long did it take you to learn it? Like
bassoon. Bassoon's a good way. Yeah.
So like that would be more engaging. Yeah. And someone would be like, oh, see a flyer, instead of saying like, oh, okay, here's the Philharmonic. It's not my thing. I'm just not going to go. They could see a flyer and be like, oh, I heard an interview with this guy who plays this ridiculous instrument in this band, in this thing. I'm going to go check it out. So it's a way to connect people. Yeah. It really is.
And do you still need a FCC license and all that for internet broadcast? Right. You can just do it. Right? Just
I had to. We really started like way before we should have. Like we were like, let's do this thing. And I woke up every day for like a good 3.5 months in the middle of the night going like, shit. Yeah. Yep. Like really totally terrified.
Yep.
And I just kept going and going because I had these people around me were like, I'm really excited you're doing this thing. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, about that. I think that
yeah, so about that.
Totally. Did I say I was going to do that? But no, we just
That's
did.
So
we just did. We had an opening day, and it was like a super steep learning curve. Mm-hmm. We totally screwed up at first. We were streaming to YouTube. We got shut down. We rerouted the audio. It was off from the video. It was a nightmare. So we finally made some decisions, and over time we've gotten it to where we're a semi functional radio station.
No, I know that story.
But we've had like 500,000 viewers
that's amazing.
And from a tiny closet on the North Shore of Staten Island.
Like go to the website and look, it's tiny.
Yeah, it's bakerparkradio.nyc.
Like
if I can shout out myself.
2 people are in there.
We've gotten like 5-piece band in that tiny room.
Seen
like
Dave Keener getting up in there.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take another short break. We'll be back in a few. You're listening to Entrepreneurial Web.
Okay.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
talkingalternative.com.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, with my guest, the fighter, Kristen Wallace. It's the last round. Ding,
yes,
ding, ding.
It is. I think he gets his head cut off at the end.
He
The
does.
poor William.
That's going to be
Wallace.
my fate, not yours. It'll just be an accident,
Like
too.
just-
I'll be like, oh, what's this? Curiosity killed the cat.
All this technology. It's
Yeah.
got to be bound to be something. Yeah, I mean, technology is a steep learning curve for sure.
Oh, man.
When you're jumping into something.
And-
Because there's so much
yeah.
misinformation out there.
But also, like, we didn't grow up with the way, like, we're totally analog and then trying to play catch up. And that's what I've done. It's whatever. I started this show in September. And it's been a scramble, you know, and I put a lot of time in, and I felt like I've learned a couple things. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, we were just talking about distribution, like how to optimize distribution and just get the word out there. Like, this makes no money either, you know.
Yeah.
It costs money, but
Yeah.
it's fun, and it's just great for so many reasons. But you have to maximize, and it's like being a parent. You know, you really learn to be efficient because you got like 8 minutes to get this task done that usually takes 15. But
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, editing is like the nerdy part of it. I actually like the editing
Good for you,
nerdy
'cause
part
I
of
don't.
it because I like audio editing and stuff.
well,
I,
see,
I find that really fun.
doing all the recording and stuff I did, the editing was the part I liked the least. It was like we'd record. I love the composition process. I love the studio time and everything. And it was like everybody left, and I'm sitting in front of the computer, and I'm like,
It's like, yeah.
you know, just like sine waves and cosine waves in front of me, and I'm like, I'm just gonna die.
Well,
They're just
for-
gonna like.
Because I learned Ableton, like I said before, but
Yeah.
it's like if it's up to me, I'm happy in front of a computer just like tweaking audio. But I started this really social
Kick
thing
drum sounds, right?
where I have to talk to people.
Yeah.
And I have to talk to people a lot because we're a community radio
Right.
station where that really reflects our neighborhood. So we have part of the Sri Lankan population there that's very big, like the biggest outside of Sri Lanka.
Apparently,
in the
the
United
food's
States.
better in Staten Island than it is in Sri Lanka.
Oh, really?
Too.
That's the
Yeah.
word?
Yeah, that's what I've
So
heard.
it's really good.
Yeah, I gotta come.
And then
try
there's
that.
also like whatchamacallit?
Who else is here? We got some more guests.
Oh,
I
hello.
gotta keep up with this. Who's this?
But then
Gary
like we're
Rosenthal.
doing. Oh, hey Gary.
What's up, Gary?
Hello.
Renee Hart. That's my boy. Nora McGloin.
Nice.
Brooklyn
nice.
Army Terminal. Tom chimed in.
Oh.
Debbie, you know Debbie, right?
Yes.
We were at a party together recently, and I was like,
Hi, Debbie.
you must know Kristen
Yes,
Wallace, and
she's
she's like, oh my
awesome.
god. I was like,
I love her.
yeah.
I know. I
And
miss you guys too.
Kev Mo's he's a trombone player that I went to school with, and
Nice.
still lives. He lives right
Nice.
just south in Kensington.
Kensington. That is so
Kensington
cool.
in the
Where all the cool
house.
people live
Yeah,
in Staten Island now. We got to make the Kensington Staten Island connection.
it ain't far. We
It
need our
isn't
own little
far.
ferry that just
I
goes
know.
like right across the
wish.
water
I
real
wish
fast.
A rowboat. Tom can get a rowboat like,
Come
or
on,
something.
he can work
If
this
anybody.
out. Come on, he knows a couple
That's
people on
that
the
guy.
waterway. Yeah,
Yeah.
a little side hustle for him.
So we're doing this gospel event like next month, March the 21st. So it's a gospel brunch with all these gospel, like this, the Late Show gospel choir from the Late Show.
Oh,
and
wow.
like a bunch of really awesome gospel bands and stuff. So I have flyers and I have to do stuff that's so out of my comfort zone, right? To try to reach that community. And I just have to show up to stuff.
Yeah.
And just be like, here I am,
Hi.
this person. So last night I showed up to this Black History Month thing at a high school that was right next to the projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there and I'm just standing there and I finally strike up a conversation. And I was like the only white person there and like 300 and some people. And I just started talking to people and I'm like, who am I? This is not me. I'm a nerd person that likes to do stuff like by myself. I like camping by myself. Like I was
always
like,
been
why am I
outgoing, though.
talking to
I would
total
never
strangers?
characterize you as like an introvert.
I don't know.
Well, do you remember how we
introverted
met?
extrovert?
We were sitting on our stoop on 20th Street, and Patty was pregnant, and you walked downstairs with the twins, and you just looked at her, and you went, "Here, hold this," and just handed her a baby, like no, nothing else, no hi, like you were just like, "Oh, I'm tired. You need practice. Here you go." It's not.
Oh, I do remember.
That is not introverted behavior.
At that point, no, it was
At that point, you were like,
"Take the baby
It's out." It's great.
But so it has made me have to talk to people way, way more, and I had to talk about the radio station quite a lot to people and what you're doing, and that part of it, the sort of consistently elevator pitching or consistently talking to people and and searching for other DJs. Like I can be at a party and I will find that person that will be a new DJ host. Like I'd be at a block party and I listen to this woman, she's talking about how much she loves comic books. And I'm like, you are going to be a DJ host. And she is.
So how does that work out if you're like into comic books and then like you got to translate that into music?
Her show's
somehow?
called Across the Panels. So there's talk shows there too.
Oh, okay.
So during the
It's
week
not all
usually.
music. I've only ever seen
It's
the
mostly
radio the
mostly
stuff.
music, but it's talk shows. So like our talk shows are we have a show called 2 Drink Minimum, which is about drinking, breweries and stuff. But her
Plenty
show's
of those
called,
around right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
Across the Panels.
Has
which
just Staten Island gotten privy to that? Is there a distillery on Staten Island yet?
there's Flagship Brewery.
Oh, well, that's a brewery.
And-
I used to
yeah.
sell Flagship, but have they
and
like
Hillsborough Brewery.
has anybody put up a still? Like there's
No.
like in Brooklyn, there's like 17 gins and like 5 whiskeys and rum and just like
No, I think there is none.
Gotta
There's
talk to
maybe a
somebody.
market there.
need
for
a
that.
like a maker park whiskey.
Oh, that'd be a great idea. I think somebody was trying to make a still, and I think somebody does it in
Out
their
of they could do it out of one of
bathroom or
those
something.
shipping containers.
They should.
Yeah.
But anyway, oh yes, and so like I was at a pocketbook party. I don't really carry a pocketbook, but I felt obligated. It was my kid's coach, and she's like, "Come to my party where I'm selling these monogram pocketbooks." And I was like, "All right," and I was listening. Everyone's talking to me like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm starting a non-for-profit streaming radio station," and they would. Most people like glaze over. They're like, "Oh, that's interesting," and this one woman was like, "I want to be a DJ," and I was like, "Yeah, doesn't everybody want to be a DJ?" But she was like, "No, really, I do." And so she's from East New York, and she grew up there. Listening to her dad throw parties in her basement, and she would be sent to bed, and she would sneak out at night and sit on her stairwell and listen.
Jam.
And so she inherited her dad's record collection, and so her show is called Stairwell Sessions and Beyond.
That's awesome.
Shout out
So
to
you guys
Lisa
actually
Euclid.
you spin some records.
Records.
There's like
anyone
record-
could come
people
in there
can play
with whatever
records.
they
Yeah.
want, not like 8-track player or anything. But if you have a controller, if you play off a USB CDJ, DJ, if you want to play vinyl, if you want to play CDs, if you want to just play off your computer, you can do that. I mean, it's whatever people are comfortable with, and we teach people how to DJ because it's super amateur. We pride ourselves on how much of a amateur,
It's
controlled
like
mess
the
that we are.
CBGBs of
It's authentic, at least. It's
internet.
we pride ourselves on our unpolished.
That's great.
No,
I love it.
There's some beautiful moments
I'm
that
into
can
that
happen
as well.
Yeah, well, you got to come
just
visit.
listen to my previous shows.
Like, I don't know. It was a controlled slide the whole time. No idea what we talked about.
Right.
But it's.
Oh, I'd love to come out.
You
definitely.
have to come
The family
out.
is due for a visit for
Yes,
sure. Definitely.
absolutely.
We were back in the woods a little bit because of the accident.
Accident. Yes.
Baby.
She can't call her that.
No, Patty said that the other day. She said not an accident.
I remember she was like, I want 5 kids. Once upon a time, she told me that. And I was like,
close.
Yeah, well, why don't you reassess that when you get to like 3?
She did. She was like, yeah, no, let's do it again. So
it's
anyways.
awesome.
So
I'm
where
so
exactly, thank you. We got a minute or 2 left. Tell people about, like, where's the space exactly, like geographically? Like, most of us don't know Staten Island.
So we're kind of like by the ferry.
Right. Could you
on the
walk
North
there
Shore.
from the ferry?
You could. It's like a free train ride, 2 stops though.
Oh, okay.
So from
Cool.
the ferry,
You just take the train.
from the free ferry to the free train.
Yeah.
2 stops. We're right there. And we're in Stapleton, which is a neighborhood. It's on the North Shore. We can see the Manhattan skyline from Maker Park.
Oh, that's so dope.
It's like a world away,
Yeah,
though.
but it's still
It's like so
still
far yet.
awesome.
So yeah. And then we're inside of Makerspace, but you can find us at Makerspace. Makerparkradio.nyc is us. We're also streaming to TuneIn Radio. We also stream to our own free app, Maker Park Radio app.
And you guys post a lot to Twitter. I see that.
I don't do Twitter as much as Instagram.
Oh, okay.
Maker Park Radio on Instagram.
I see more of it on Twitter for some reason.
So I have somebody else do that, and I don't, but I should.
I retweet them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I try to pump it out. Yeah.
We and I DJ at Official Chris Wallace. I haven't been in there to DJ in a long time. It's like 2 hours of my happy place where nobody asked me to do anything. Like nobody texted me. It's 2 hours of like. Anyway.
Gotcha. Good for the head.
Yes,
Gotta do it.
Therapy.
Yeah.
Learn to DJ. It's good therapy.
Awesome. Cool. Well, if you're interested in that, check out any of Kristen's sites. If you want to learn to DJ, if you're already a DJ, or you just want to have some fun, go check it out.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks
you
so
much.
So good to see you again.
You too.
Thank you for coming on the show. Okay, everybody, have an awesome weekend. We'll check in with you next week and listen to the Entrepreneurial Web.
Bye.
Peace.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Hey, all you crazy listeners. Looking to boost your business? Why not advertise on Talking Alternative with very reasonable rates? Interested? Simply email at info@talkingalternative.com.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.